Hello friends, I made this for. My name is Lauren. And let's talk about what's happening in the world right now. So, first of all, there's a lot going on, right? That's undeniable. Ugh, just like gunk in my eyes, undeniable. There's a lot going on in the world astrologically, and so there's certain things we want to be aware of. Specifically, I'm going to do a quick reading for certain dates coming up soon. So, the deck that I'm using today is the Smith-Waite Tarot deck. And today I'm going to be doing a quick reading around, November 30th, which is going to be our first eclipse of eclipse season. My intention today is just kind of to create some clarity around what's been going on lately. Of course, the big themes going on. This motherfucking election, am I right? So on November 30th, we're going to be having a full moon. And with that full moon, it's going to be a eclipse because, of course, we're entering the eclipse season. And so let's kind of dive into the tarot as a reflection of what energies to expect, what's going to be coming up for us, and what should we be aware of. No peeking. So, I pulled 3 cards to kind of give us some insight. And what I'm going to say right away is usually I don't read reversals. But because of the state of the world, because of how weird things are getting, I am going to read a reversal that is here today because it does seem like it's personal. Or at least it makes sense for what's coming up. So what came up? Well, first we have this cup, this sun, and this emperor. And none of this surprises me. The first card I pulled was 9 of Cups. So what does 9 of Cups represent? To me, 9 of Cups has always represented guarding of resources. It's a smug experience, right? It's one of those things where we see the 9 of Cups come up when we see some big lessons coming in around sitting in our power in a way that doesn't actually serve others. So for me, and I feel like I read this card a little differently, pride is getting a little big. And this is for anybody, where we might find ourselves getting a little big for our britches, right? Maybe we feel like we're in the right. Maybe we feel like we know better than others. We have so many resources at our disposal, right? With this cup card, we see emotionally that we are full, but we might become drunk with power. So what does that mean? I think in tandem with everything else, there's a big remembrance of that we're not done. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. 9s indicate that we are coming close to the finish line. But I feel like in this sense, and of course in this what's the word to put it? I'm on a lot of pause right now because I feel like there's a lot of shifts happening in multiple areas when people aren't paying attention. And I think this reading really calls to that deeply. When we look at this Nine of Cups, we also see resources being held for ourselves. We see that we are maybe even gatekeeping to a certain level. Perhaps we need to remember how humble we have had to be to get to this place. But what else, right? There's a lot of ego here. And ego is not necessarily evil, right? Ego is a lot of lesson, a lot of insight. But ego can also take us down a path that maybe we're not ready to go down. Maybe we might think work is done when it's not. And that's important to remember with Nine of Cups, is that we are not done. We haven't reached 10 yet. And 10 is a really great place to be, right? The 10 of Cups is such a positive place. We feel so good in it. But here's why it's not done. The reversal of the Sun card for me connects us into where we need to rearrange our focus. Perhaps we are focused on how things were, or maybe we're not looking at how things were. Maybe we're looking at the past through some rosy-colored goggles, but not really acknowledging some hard truths. Now that doesn't mean that that everything's going to be turned upside down and suddenly Joe Biden is not the president and suddenly we are stuck with Trump for another 4 years. I can't really say that from a reading, right? I don't believe that tarot reading can give you that sort of insight. It can give us ideas around energy. So it might feel like the sun is getting a little dark, right? It might feel like towards the end of this month that we're dealing with some really toxic energies. Actually, on that note, yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like with this eclipse and the fact that it's going to be a full lunar eclipse is that we're going to be having to deal with some new energies around where our shadow work lies, right? Because if we're talking about shadow work in general, we know that this shadow work requires us looking inward, right? And with that being the case, we're going to have to face a certain level of duality, because remember, all of this is happening in Gemini. This full moon in Gemini with the lunar eclipse is going to have us reflect inward, but also outward. So where do we see some problems with people around us? Other notes. Coming to terms with shadow work is going to mean that our inward sun, we might have to reverse where we look rather than outward to inward, right? So what's another place to see that in? Well, when we see the Emperor card here, we can see that it can deal with authority, but it's most likely going to be talking about our inward authority, and I feel that way because of this card. That it's going to be a little mixture of, yes, we're dealing with the authority around us, like our leaders and our transition of power in America. Hopefully this transition is smooth, right? But I think there's also a lot of doubt that the transition will happen, because there's definitely a large number of people who do not believe that the count is over. There's people that believe that there's a lot of voter fraud. So there's a lot of people struggling to come into power with their own Emperor energy. We are going to struggle to come into power with our own Emperor energy. And the reason is because we are going to be asked to stay strong when we feel at our most vulnerable. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of shit happening, right? And this shit is not going to get easier this month, because come our lunar eclipse next month, we're going to have to double down on some of what we're learning. Think back 6 months ago and think about what you were doing, what was going on. Because as we talk about eclipses, they are 6-month cycles, yes? So this whole year, the year of the Emperor, has been a lot about struggles of power, or acknowledging power, or taking back power, redistribution of power, communities taking power, and trying to have voices heard, right? So this is a big theme around Emperor for this year, just in general. But then on top of all of this, we're getting closer to a finale. We're getting closer to the end. We're getting closer to a post-Trump America. And then we're also having to come to terms with where we might have seen, this is a weird one to say, but where we might have had hope and where we can't hold that hope as high anymore. Honestly, it's us. We are the authority. We're the ones who have control of ourselves, right? And ultimately, no matter who is president, we must control, we must support our communities. We are the ones that will redistribute that power. Those in power will not do it for us. We can't rely on others to help us out of the darkness. Whew, sleepy. Bless me. But this reversal, like all reversals, I don't read them often, but when I do see a reversal in a way that I feel is like, yes, this reversal is coming through as a reversal, it's like an opportunity to, how do we turn it right side up? So it might feel like towards the end of this month that we are reaching a point that we don't know what to do next, because everything is uncertain. President Donald Trump is currently going to fight tooth and nail so that he does not have to leave office in January. I expect with these cards there is a reminder coming through for this first lunar eclipse to not take things for granted, to humble ourselves, and remember that with our humility comes more strength and authority. We are the ones, our communities, small grassroots organizations, that's where the actual change happens, right? And where we might lose hope, we have to find that hope. So that's my reading for the full moon coming later this month on the 30th. Now, keep in mind, remember, as we move through this lunar energy, with it being we're about to move into Sagittarius later this month, right? It's Sagittarius energy. We're big lessons coming up. Teachers, education, things like that. I'm a teacher. This is probably going to be an interesting month as we navigate how to teach online even longer than we thought, because that's also happening for some of us, at least for me. There's navigating a lot of different things, but ultimately big takeaways. Remember your resources, remember humility, and remember that it's not over till it's over. Remember, we might have to look inward to find the light to express outward. We also might have to turn our world upside down for a hot second. And we are the authority. So as we're moving into this Gemini energy, this heavy Gemini energy that's going to be happening with this full moon, this illumination, think of it as a good mirror, because what you see, and this is something that I think people need to be doing more, cross-reference your information. So listen to far right people, listen to far left people. And I say that as you should listen to these people to understand where the other end is looking and what other people are thinking outside of your spectrum of thought. I'm not saying listen to pundits that are hateful so that you learn and ingest that image and that knowledge. No, but we do need to be mindful of how are conservatives handling this? How are the left handling this? And if you don't follow the news at all, pop your head in just to have some awareness, because there's going to be some interesting things, right? You don't want to be caught off guard right now, and everyone is a mirror. So even where you might think, ooh, I don't want to listen to this person, you don't have to listen to certain people. But maybe turn on CNN, maybe turn on Fox News, because those are the most extreme on those both sides, right? And it's the mainstream media. If you don't listen to mainstream media, I get it. I'm not saying to listen to like infuse that as your thought process, but to simply observe how other people see and view what's going on. Because I think that's a big lesson, especially with Gemini, is that we observe others around us, that we see them as those mirrors so that we can reflect, ingest, and understand where the group thought might be on different ends of the spectrum. Because ultimately, the cups are all around us. We can drink from them, but we can't be so prideful that we think we don't need the water. So, hope that resonated with you. If it didn't, thanks for coming by anyway. And if it did resonate with you, comment, like, subscribe, link down below. Anyway, have a beautiful day. I don't know why I'm so weird. Bye.